So today we have an awesome topic, mobility. And I looked at the definition of mobility because who doesn't do that every once in a while? And it's about being able to move freely around an area, freely or easily. And so with that definition in mind, I want us to think about how we continue to move people freely and easily around the Uptown district. But we have a great panel, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves, actually. So just a little bit about yourselves and why mobility is important to you. Okay, can I start with you?
Yes. Towfiq Khan, I represent the city of Dallas. I'm an executive manager for Department of Transportation. I started with city of Dallas in January, middle January. I come from LA. Did a lot of consulting work with Department of Transportation in Los Angeles, city of Pasadena, city of Glendale, and I inherited the scooter program. So, yeah, hold your questions. That's pretty much it.
Good morning, my name is Will Coleman. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a new ride-hailing company here in Dallas called Alto. If you haven't tried us out, go to our website, ridealto.com, or look for us in the App Store or Google Play, Ride Alto. Before starting Alto, I was in the consulting world. I was a partner at McKinney & Company, a big consulting firm. Spent about 10 years of my life in the consumer travel space, working with big consumer travel brands, airlines, hotels, car rental companies, casinos, thinking about the disruption that was happening from new forms of mobility on their businesses. And got really excited about the space and the disruption that was happening and wanted to be part of that. So decided to try and take a crack at starting something that would disrupt the disruptors, I call it. And we're taking on some of the big players in mobility and trying to do something a little bit differently, which we'll talk about today.
My name is Patrick Kennedy. I'm a former resident of Uptown, own office space in Uptown, so I work in Uptown still. I own a business called Space Between Design Studio, which is urban design, landscape architecture, and I am also on the board of Dallas Area Rapid Transit, where I'm the chair of Operations, Safety, and Security, and I consult with Uptown Dallas Public Improvement District on public realm, mobility, and public safety issues.
Good morning, I'm Cervantes. I'm the president of McKinney Avenue Transit Authority. We started here about a year and a half. Just to give you an idea of what the job entails, I feel like I joined a 30-year-old startup. It's been around for a while. I'm an engineer by trade, and it's been one of the most exciting jobs I've had in a lot of ways. Glad to be here.
Great, thank you. Before we kind of jump into it, and we like to hit things head on, so we're going to start with scooters. I do want to acknowledge Mr. Blewett, who's here. Thank you for being here, our council member for District 14. We appreciate you being here and glad you're a part of the conversation, for sure. And so, like I said, we don't shy away from things. We want to talk about scooters this morning. You inherited the program. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how the pilot started and what next steps are and what's been going on?
So the pilot started about June 2018. We have 5 companies that are permitted to operate in city of Dallas. We have Lyft, Bird, Jump, Lime, and Ojo. Ojo is a very small company. The little ones that you see with the seat is actually Ojo. By the way, for the record, I love Scooter Steve. So we have about 11,000 scooters permitted, about 4,000 deployed in the city of Dallas, mostly in downtown areas, some in Deep Elm and Uptown. These are our heaviest used areas. The pilot ends in November 28th, and we are actually in the process of recommend policies and enforcement policies and data gathering stage until then. So I want to talk about the importance of following what Steve is saying, because we look at reports from different cities every day. And when a child is riding the scooter, oftentimes when we're outside, we see doubling up on scooters. So a mother in Oklahoma was riding with a 5-year-old on a scooter and got struck, and the child died. So we have fatalities all around. The program is great. We have about 38.5 million rides throughout the United States in 2018 alone, and it's growing. We have about 11,000 rides every day in Dallas. So that's over 250,000 rides every month. So the program works. It's doing what it's supposed to do. It's providing the last mile solution. It's the rider's behavior is what we really need to talk about and alter. I joke about it. The person ending up on I-35 or the scooter, that changed my life for 3 weeks. It was a bigger of an event than the birth of my daughter because I got so many phone calls. What are we doing about it? Bro.
If you haven't seen it,
it was like, yeah, what are you doing about this? Well, it's what can we do if someone ends up on the freeway running, or with a bike? What do we do? It's illegal. He can't do it. So it's the behavior that we need to kind of work with. Now, what is the city doing to alter some of this behavior? So let's talk about sidewalk riding. It's legal to ride on the sidewalks in some part of Dallas. Actually, most part of Dallas is legal to ride on sidewalks, except some areas, especially in CBD, the Central Business District downtown, some part of Deep Ellum. So you have few laws in the city of Dallas that you cannot ride on the sidewalk. Although we do encourage scooters or bikes to be ridden on the city's right-of-way, we're working on stripe dedicated bike or micro-mobility lane. We no longer can call it just the bike lane because you have a lot more scooters than bikes on the street, so we call it the micro-mobility lane. We are putting in bike/scooter rack. Actually, I'm doing a ride-through. Patrick, you were there. We are riding to identify this highly traffic or dumb areas where scooters are just clustering up. So we are putting in bike/scooter racks. We're going to come up with signs. Some of you may have seen signs in downtown areas where it says do not ride on sidewalks. We're coming up with friendly signs where riders can identify and say, okay, I need to park it there. I need to kind of leave my scooter there. We're working with operators where we want to incentivize the riders and say, hey, if you ride your scooter and you leave your scooter in this rack, you are going to get 50 cents or $1 or some incentive for doing the right things. And this is not foreign. This has been going. This incentive program, it's in LA. It was in Atlanta. It was in Austin. So other cities throughout the United States, they're doing things like that. Cities are partnering up with the operators to build this infrastructure, such as bike and scooter racks, charging stations. So matter of fact, I had a meeting with the director. We are working on policies on maybe operation hours because 57% of the accidents takes place after 7 p.m., believe it or not. And all fatalities, we know of about 14, happen after 10 p.m. So we're looking at their operating hours. What are we doing to restrict these operators to give access to this mobility, the scooters, after hours? Because all the crazies are out when the sun goes down, right? So, those are some of the things we're doing to kind of better shape the program. We have a 311 program, and I highly encourage everyone. 311 program is just not for potholes or trash pickup. It's for scooter as well. We have a 2 hours SLA time, a response time for any operators, weekdays between 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. When you see something wrong, you can go into your 311 and put in a service request for the operators, which gets forwarded to the operators directly. We have our team in Department of Transportation. We track it. Within 2 hours, they must address that issue and report back to us, sometimes with a comment and a picture. And we have our team going back every 2 to 4 hours to verify that 2 hours SLA was met. And we're working with parking enforcement, trying to work something with the DPD to first caution and warn the riders to kind of behave. We don't want to go out with enforcement right away and say, here is a $50 citation, here is a $100 citation, because the program is new, and we could shape this program. We just need to understand it. What I really believe is we just didn't get enough time to understand and wrap our heads around this program, and I think it is doable. It's just taking a little bit of time, and that's why we have this pilot program, to learn about this program, to learn what we should or shouldn't do, what we could or couldn't do. That's that.
Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, one thing that we always like to have in these conversations is takeaways, and what we constantly hear from the city is engagement by the public is extremely important. So knowing that you should be using the 311 app, calling those things in, because we have to help to kind of police the situation, I think. So if there's a 2-hour SLA, and many of us, we see it when we drive in. If you see it when you drive out and you had already put it in 311, they didn't meet the standard. So that's a part where we can definitely be engaged. Now, we definitely encourage people to ride their scooters on the streets, but we also know that the streets in Uptown have some unique challenges. So Vic, I want to know if you guys have had any trolley scooter track incidents that you want to talk about.
Well, they do exist. They have happened. It is a concern of ours. Obviously, it has to do with a number of things. It can't be the tracks. They've been around for 30 years, so they're a known feature. But I think the fact that we have new devices with people that are not necessarily experienced how to ride these things, I think they're very fast. I think they do run quite quickly. In the area, I think our concern is that people are not informed of the hazards. I think we need to do more of that. These programs, I think, are very valuable. There are things that we want to do to really prevent accidents. That being said, I'm all for new modes of transportation that expand, especially the trolleys route. You can have an extra 2-3 blocks of range. Take a trolley, catch a scooter, and get to your show, get to your restaurant, whatever you need to do. But we really need to think about how we protect the riders. The other statement that you made about accidents happening at night, without a doubt. You can imagine how difficult it is for our operators to try to stop a 20-ton vehicle and somebody decides to zoom by in a scooter. So it is a concern of ours, and we really like to see more of these information sessions.
So if I may, some of the other things we're going to recommend to council, unfortunately we can't talk about all the details before it goes in front of our leadership. But we are entertaining scooter restricted zones, so we can block off, like some other cities. Some part of Deep Ellum, I really want to block off. Some part of Uptown, downtown, as good as they are, but some areas, just like the tracks, we are to stop the riders from going in. So there is a mechanism where the scooters could be disengaged, and we're piloting a data program with 3 of the data vendors, because we want to see where the scooters are. Some operators are more friendly than the others. Some operators, they don't want to show and share the data. That's a whole other topic. But we are in a pilot program which shows us where the scooters are. When they're there, how long they've been left there. So we're in that program right now. So we will have a better understanding and a better look, an in-depth data-oriented look by end of October.
So kind of to wrap up the scooter conversation, tell us a little bit about how the fees in Dallas compare to other cities and other places where you've been, and is there a way for this to be is this a positive addition to the budget for the city, and if so, how's that money being spent? I mean, there's obviously a lot of costs associated with it as well.
Absolutely. Dallas is, so I read about 21 ordinance from different cities, and Dallas by far is the cheapest. Average annual operator's fee is somewhere between 15 to 25,000 one-time annual fee, and there is a per unit cost. National average is roughly around 125 to 195. Our cost annual is $808. Our cost per scooter is $21. So you can imagine we do not have an infrastructure fee. So Lime, Burke, Uber, cities like Oregon, they charge 25 cents per trip. Think about 11,000 trips a day. We get 25 cents, but we don't. Cities like Santa Monica, Santa Barbara, Los Angeles, I know we're not LA, but hey, fee structure is the same. You know, ridership is almost there. They charge $1 a day per scooter. That's 10,000, 11,000 scooters a day. Think about the fee structure. Dallas is nowhere close. The way we, I'm going to say, could use the money, because we don't. We make barely
$808 is going to go there.
correct. Our revenue up to date is perhaps about, last time I checked, about $148,000. That's 2 hours of income for other cities. That's our year to date. And with that, I'm putting in bike racks, scooter racks. I'm partnering up with, I'm actually looking for funding from different pits like Uptown and Downtown. We don't have enough to invest in the infrastructure. So I'm going to say, if we had the money, if we had a solid financial model, that would go directly back into the infrastructure. That would go directly back into the enforcement and the team that is required to really have a robust and an effective program.
So since we can't blame you for how it was set up, we would be able to thank you for, making a change to some of those fees and those kinds of things. Is that part of what you'll be presenting?
When we have that,
When we
yes.
have that
So right
conversation.
now we spent a little bit of money to do the signs. We have about 60 signs throughout downtown Deep Ellum saying do not ride on the sidewalks. We have, I think, about 23 bike and scooter racks. As a matter of fact, yesterday I looked at it and I wanted to put in about 80 more bike and scooter racks throughout. It may sound like a lot, but you will see if you look at every corners, downtown CBD alone will need about 90, 95. Uptown, Patrick, you and I, we identified about 25 to 30 spots easy. So there is a cost. There is a cost. So that's where most of this funds will go to. Because initially, when we're building this infrastructure, that's where all this money is. So once the infrastructure is there and we have a system, then it's self-sustaining. Then it's just maintaining that program. But to answer your question, all the funds will go towards that.
And Towfiq, when you talk about new fee structures and infrastructure, we could be talking about low emissions lanes, which may be dedicated lanes for bikes and scooters. So the scooters aren't competing for space where they're under threat by cars, or they're not competing for space on sidewalks where they're a threat to pedestrians, but they have their own space when they're right about.
Absolutely right. I mean, we looked at some of the Europe models. Europe is way ahead of us. They're way ahead of us in bike programs, in other formal mobility programs. I had an idea. I can't remember the name of the city. So many of them. They are taking out single space meters. So some areas, when you allow riders to be on the sidewalks, they're taking away the single space meters and putting in one multi-space meter for every 10 meters or every 8 meters. So what that does, that opens up about 18 inches of space on the sidewalk. Can that be dedicated scooter lane? We don't know, but there are ideas like that. So yes, it's absolutely possible to have a micromobility lane.
Great. And of course, Uptown has a very high walkability score. When we did our last demographic study, about 15% of our residents said that they don't have cars at all. I'm sure we're actually in the process of doing that study again with a lot more detail and more psychographic information. We're going to see that number go up. And so ride share and all of those types of offerings, having options in Uptown is what we really want to be able to offer to our stakeholders here. So Will, I want to talk a little bit about Alto and kind of your journey here and what you think you guys bring to Uptown and to Dallas in general.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing the same kind of statistics that you are, which is that car ownership generally in the U.S. is declining pretty quickly. The number of high school seniors that are getting their driver's license is actually down almost 20 to 30% in the last 10 to 15 years, which is really remarkable if you think about, when many of us graduated from high school, the idea of not having your driver's license wasn't really an option, especially here in Dallas. And so we think that ride sharing is going to continue to be a really big part of urban mobility, in addition to other forms as well. But we want to offer something to our customers. Alto means elevated, and so what we're trying to do is elevate the passenger experience, elevate the driver experience in rideshare, create a safe and consistent alternative to our customers and to our drivers. The way we do that is by ensuring that we have a dedicated fleet of vehicles. You always know the car that you're going to get. There's one parked just outside in Alto. It's liveried so that you know that you're getting into the proper vehicle. Our app integrates into the car to allow you to activate lights in the grille so that you can know that that's your car approaching and your driver. And our drivers are W-2 employees. That means that we can not only select and vet them, but also train them. Something you can't do with independent contractors. We can train them on how to drive safely and how to provide a high quality of customer service. We can also performance manage them. We also can't do that with independent contractors. And it means that we can, again, integrate technology into the ride to ensure the safety and the consistency of the experience for both our passenger and drivers. All of our cars have telematics integrated inside so that we can see not only real-time position and speed, tire pressure and RPMs, but also acceleration, deceleration, turning speeds. And that allows us to make sure that our drivers are providing a safe experience for our customers. All of our cars have interior and exterior facing video cameras so that we can see what's happening outside as we're faced with new obstacles on the road, but also inside to take care of our passengers and our drivers. We have facial recognition in the cameras that detect distracted driving. And so really everything that we do is about providing a safe experience for everyone in the vehicle. And we think that that's really differentiated in the market today and something that allows our customers to really feel confident that they can really go without a car. I got rid of my car when I started Alto and now know that I always have that consistent experience every day. And don't have to feel like I'm rolling the dice or playing the lottery with the car that's going to show up, the driver that's going to show up, the experience.
Yeah, that's great. So we've been talking a lot about rideshare zones, and I'm going to put this out to the overall panel because I know you guys have experience in a lot of different other cities. But this idea that you have rideshare in one place. And if any of you travel, at the airport, sometimes you got to walk for it. You got to work for your rideshare. But there's usually a designated area for drop off and pick up, which also can add to the safety aspect. Alto, obviously, you've got a real presence, and so it makes it very obvious to know that you're getting in the right car. But talk to me a little bit about those options, and like I said, for anyone on the panel, what you've seen, and if you think that kind of option would work in Uptown.
Yeah, I can start and opine, and I'm happy to have a discussion. My perspective and our perspective at Alto is that certainly in very high density areas like airports, special events, concerts, sporting events, things like that, it absolutely makes sense to have dedicated pickup zones where you can control traffic and traffic flows very carefully, and to aggregate that into a single space that is not disruptive to other forms of traffic. We found that solving pickup in urban settings doesn't really, that using designated pickup zones isn't actually the right answer. It's an easy answer, but it doesn't actually solve the root of the problem, which is congestion. And so what we do at Alto is, in the form of consistency, we really encourage our passengers to plan just a little bit ahead. We offer 10 to 15 minute pickup times. We're consistent in offering that. Our average pickup time is 10.4 minutes. We do that in about 96% of cases. And so you always know that your car is going to be there in about 10 minutes. And we encourage our passengers just to plan that extra little time in advance. What that does, the difference between having an 11-minute pickup time and a 3-minute pickup time means that we need about 120 times fewer vehicles on the road. And we think that that's a really big differentiator for cities and the communities that we operate in. because it's that congestion of vehicles that actually aren't even actively picking up passengers that's causing most of the problem. And so we have really focused on how to change the business model in a way that is better for cities, but also better for our passengers, because with less congestion, we can actually go to the place that you want to be picked up or dropped off. We can be there when you're ready for us, not too early or too late. And so we think solving it that way is a better way long term to solve that problem.
Yeah, and this is not a new problem or not a new concept. Even before technology, transportation companies or network technology companies, that there were dedicated cab pickup drop-off places, whether at airports or even high-density cities. You see them in Manhattan. And before Uber and Lyft showed up here, we were having a similar issue of one, pickups and drop-offs happening just about anywhere, where DPD had to basically write tickets if anybody was picking up and dropping off in the wrong place and stopping traffic, particularly on McKinney Avenue. Or you see in studies in San Francisco and Manhattan, they're seeing that congestion has gone up since the introduction of some of these companies by 60 or 70%, mostly because of the deadheading and the circling around, constantly just waiting for that next ride. Because most of the times they're not just stopping and waiting. But if you create those zones in the right kind of places, then people have that place to sit, and then it's not part of that traffic, and they're not stopping in the middle of the street to disrupt traffic. And we have that issue up and down McKinney where you might have the trolley either sharing a track where they're picking up and dropping off, and they could be stopping the trolley, or the trolley is in the middle lane, and the pickup and drop-offs are happening on the curbside lane, and then everything shuts down trying to move in that direction. And that causes, and we'll talk about McKinney in a little bit, but that's what causes some of those problems, because you have no other way to get around when that kind of thing happens. So I think it's inevitable. Deep Ellum is already doing some of this stuff. It'll be interesting to see what their lessons learned are. But I think we'll be seeing that probably sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I would just say that I think that's something we should really talk about, because it's easy to say that that solves the problem, but I really think that it actually just masks the problem. It moves cars to a different position. What we've seen in Deep Ellum actually is that one, customers are very reluctant to use it, but two, the waiting just moves to another street, right? And so it moves the congestion from one street to another, versus actually thinking about a place for staging, but not necessarily for pickups, right? So what you're looking for is a place for vehicles to be able to wait without causing congestion on the street. It's not really the pickups and the drop-offs that are
What's
causing
new is the connection between your phone and the car, and the GPS connection between it, rather than having to go find that one place to pick up and drop off. So I think there's that hybrid model.
Exactly, because what we used before was taxi waiting zones, right? They weren't really pickup points. Like you didn't have to get in a taxi at a taxi stand in downtown Dallas. But taxis had a place to wait there, and so I think that's really what we need to talk about, is how to create space for the right number, by the way, too, of vehicles, because I think that density and congestion is a real problem, part of it. So we need to think about creating the right number of spaces and creating the rules and regulations that ensure that we don't create too much density for the areas that we're trying to serve.
So about the staging area, what you're talking about, taxi concept, actually, the staging area was the pickup zone. In Deep Ellum, we're doing this rideshare pilot. Everything's a pilot. And we did see less congestion through certain streets. Again, can this be better? Yes. But that's the point of the pilot, to understand how we can shape these programs better. And we do have a staging zone, and unfortunately, we don't see that many vehicles are waiting in this area. So we're having to now take out that zone, because staging is not going to work, because the very concept of rideshare is that when it's going, you summon a vehicle and it shows up where you are. But I do think that having a specific drop-off and a pickup zone works. It works. Deep Ellum, it's a different beast. I mean, I grew up in New York, but haven't seen anything like this. So it's a different beast too. But if that can be better, and I do think we helped the congestion. We cleared it out. We actually timed before and after. So traffic flows better, and we have a lot of lesson learning, and a lot of it we can't talk. And I want to go back to that data sharing thing. It is imperative that the operators shares their data with cities, because we don't know where your vehicles are. We don't know if that vehicle went into a restricted zone, which is designed to keep you out. Was there a vehicle in there? What time they were? How long did they, stay there? All of this. It's imperative that we get visibility of that data, because we are blind. We cannot measure. So far, both scooters and this rideshare, unfortunately, we're not able to measure this. And you cannot manage something when you cannot measure it. So it's imperative that we have visibility of that data. But I do think that putting these spots and zones, they work. They work.
Yeah, I think it does come down to partnership, obviously. We do need to be sure that our operators are working with the city, and then working also with organizations like ourselves. I know Alto is very involved in the community. They're actually one of our partners for our block party, which is on October 10th. A little pitch there for that.
Thanks.
So we appreciate
Thanks
it.
for the invite.
Partnering, yes. You're always invited. But you've also done some cool things with local artists, and I wanted to see if you want to talk to us a little bit about the designs of some of the cars with Alto and who you've been
Yeah,
working
absolutely.
with.
We're really excited to partner with the community overall, and to make sure that we're giving back to the community and to those that are helping us grow here in Dallas. I'm a Dallas native, grew up in the area, and spent a lot of my time in Uptown. So we're excited to be partners with Uptown specifically. But we believe that operating, we are an operator, right? We're not a technology company. That's actually my pitch when I'm raising money, is that we're not a technology company, we're a service company. So in being a service company, it's really important to us to integrate into the communities that we serve. And so we've done that in many ways, but one is in the partnerships we've made with local artists, with a local school that we're going to announce soon, and also charities, because we're wrapping our cars to make them identifiable. So it's a cool way for us to be able to showcase those people's brands and bring out their expression into the neighborhoods that we're operating as well. So Ali Kay, who is a local artist and does a lot of work in the Uptown and downtown area, the design district, has designed one of our vehicle liveries. We also, as I mentioned, have another school that's doing a livery coming out later this summer. And we're working with local charities to also find ways to use our vehicles as kind of platforms for them to showcase their brands and to make sure that those are seen around town. I think it's a cool way to really integrate into the daily lives of our community.
Definitely. And something that's been around in our community for 30 years, of course, is the McKinney Avenue Trolley. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but what I want to draw your attention to is that there's a pledge card in your seat. We would love for everybody to pledge $30 for the 30th anniversary of the Trolley. We're really pushing that. We love the Trolley in Uptown. We think it adds a lot of value to our district, and we'd love to help out our cousins over there at MATA in regards to fundraising for their 30th year anniversary. But Vic, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you to tell us a little bit more about how many trolleys there are, how long is the loop, how many stops. Just kind of give everybody some of that background information on the Trolley.
Yes, we've been around for 30 years. This actually is our 30th anniversary. And maybe a reason why you have those cards on your table is because we are a 501c3 organization. We actually take funding from several sources. One of the key ones is really Uptown, who we're very grateful to. We're providing about 25% of our funding. The other 50% comes from DART, federal government, Downtown Dallas, Inc. But that leaves about 25% of the funding that we need to operate. That has to come from either advertising, sponsorships, or donations like the ones we're hoping you'll do today. We've been around for 30 years. We are now at a stage where we have 7 trolleys. Big cry from the 4 that we started with 30 years ago in 1989. Our ridership has gone from somewhere in the tens of thousands at the beginning to over 600,000 per year today. Costs are going up. People want to get paid enough to make a living, and that places some challenges in what we do. But anyway, that's the reason why the cards are there. This year actually we finished restoring a 1951 PCC car that we got from Toronto almost 15 years ago. That restoration happened inside our shop. That's what our funds go to, operating the cars. We have a loop that's about 4.5 miles around the area. I would like to say that we got here because you needed us, but actually we're here and then Uptown grew up around us. And I think we've been part of the success. I see the trolley really in multiple ways. One is as a transportation service that we're striving to make better. We are also an attraction to the area. We provide a feature that's not found in a lot of cities. To have a 70 to 100-year-old car running around that you can actually ride to your office, to your restaurant, whatever, we provide some enjoyment that way. We're also a steward of Link to the Past in Dallas. The streetcar has a very tight story with Dallas. In the late 1800s, streetcars started operating in Dallas, and up until about 1956 when they stopped, there was a peak of having almost 300 streetcars operating through Dallas. If you look at one of those maps, and I've seen a recreation of a map, it looks, I'm sorry to say this, but better than a dark map as far as coverage and transportation around the area. We have cars that were named by SMU students in the early 1950s, Green Dragon. We have a car from Belgium. We have a car from Australia. We have 3 other cars from Dallas. So it's a long history, multiple responsibilities. Like I said, besides transportation, it is really trying to hold on to a period in Dallas that I think we would miss if it went away. I don't know if you had any other questions about it.
Well, we're going to talk a little more about Trolley, but one thing that we noted is kind of the budget and how you guys are funded and those kinds of things. And we know that you guys operate on a very tight budget. And recently, the Federal Transit Administration reported that MATA streetcar is the most efficient of any streetcar in operations in the country in terms of passenger miles and budget. So, Patrick, Vic, if you guys can talk a little bit about what that means and what it looks like, and the good of that, and then obviously the challenges of that, and where we think might be going in the future.
Yeah, fundamentally it means they have relatively high ridership per a very low budget, the very simplest way that that's calculated. And the FTA puts out this data monthly, and I'm constantly going through it just to see how we're doing DART data compared to the rest of the country. But there are not many streetcar systems that serve the level of density and number of attractions and destination drivers that this line does, which is what contributes to that ridership. On the flip side, we've got the Oak Cliff streetcar, which is, of course, disconnected from this one for now. But when it started, it didn't have a whole lot of ridership. In fact, it was virtually nil, but we've seen it going up over 100% in the last 13 months. As density is starting to fill in around it, what we're seeing is that kind of investment in the infrastructure is attracting development, is attracting density, and is starting to pick up. And once we can actually connect these lines as part of more of a network system, I think we're going to see a much more successful and even more cost-efficient service overall, because we'll have so much more ridership.
What is DART's role in the trolley and the streetcar in regards to public transportation?
Well, we operate the Oak Cliff streetcar, and we contribute a portion of funding to MATA, because from my perspective on the board, we see the streetcar network as a part of the hierarchy of trying to serve the rest of the city, because we can't deliver light rail everywhere, we can't run buses everywhere. How do we fill some of those gaps? And we understand that trolleys and streetcars, for the most part, tend to be more about economic development than necessarily transit. I think that can change as we start to think about the quality and level of service and how we deal with the right-of-way. But for right now, I think we need to mature all of those networks, and we're going to be working on the bus network, and we're going to be working on the streetcar master plan, and how all of those overlay and serve different things and interconnect with each other. So ultimately, my hope is within 5, 10 or so years, we're going to have a much more mature transit system that just by having the app on the phone or having the tap and go card, you can get just about anywhere you're going in a cheaper, more convenient way than having to get in your car and find parking.
Right, and so speaking of the tap and go card, obviously the trolley is free now. You know, what is the attitude towards potentially charging for the trolley, and what do we think the reaction would be of the public if it was $1, $2, $4?
You want to take that one?
Sure. So, yes, I believe that's an option. I don't believe it is the option that will solve the funding needs. I think if you look at statistical data from all the other systems of any type, all the street rail car systems, the best in class can only get about 20% of their operating funds from fares. So it is not a way to self-sustain a transportation system. But is there a possibility? Absolutely. What we've seen around the country is that some systems are successful, charging a lower fare, maybe $1, $2. Other systems are struggling because they are charging. I think we have a special scenario where people want to come to the area, people want to visit the businesses and establishments, museums, the park, and having the trolley just adds to that attractiveness. Charging $1, I don't think would be significant, but I think the jury is still out as to what effect that would have on the trolley. Obviously, if we have to get to that point to get the right funding, we'll pursue it. But I'm on the fence right now on whether that's the right thing.
My perspective is that people pay for transit if it's useful. We see that with these scooters. I mean, those things, you actually look at them cost per mile. They can be kind of expensive. You're spending $3 or $4 per mile. Whereas right now you're riding for free on trolley on the streetcar for whether you're going a mile or however far you're going. And I also think that 20% is a pretty significant chunk when you're building out a budget. And I don't see that as something that we replace, whether it's uptown or downtown or DART, that we replace that, but it should be additive because we want to be reinvesting in improvement of service is my goal. And we just have to make sure that all the partners, as part of that, agree that reinvesting in streetcar, because you built out the system 30 years ago, and now it's basically just about maintaining it, a shoestring budget. We're at the point now where we've got 5-6 times the density in the area. We can't fit everybody in cars. We have to figure out a way to reinvest in trolley and every other form of transportation to get people around.
I completely agree, and not disputing the need for other sources of funding. I think there are some investments to be made in infrastructure. Just the fact that you would have to pay a fare, whether it's a tap and go type of system or depositing any kind of money, but completely supporting the option. I think Uptown is very fortunate to have options, to have a very dense area, a very attractive area for people, and I think we need to make sure that we maximize those options that we have in place, and therefore I'm open to any of these things, and I think in the near future, I think there should be some more collaboration with DART, with the ride-hailing companies, with the scooters, and creating a network that really satisfies the need of the area, minimizes traffic, increases our safety, and I think it can be a big part of it, while being cute, riding in an old 100-year-old trolley around the city.
David, if I could just chime in, one layman's opinion on this would be that certainly public transportation has been subsidized for a really long time, and I think it probably should continue to be for obvious reasons. I think that subsidizing other forms of transportation doesn't necessarily make sense, and so I think as we continue the conversation, really focusing on making sure that we're making operators like Alto, but also like others, pay their fair share for their operating costs to the city, so that we're not using funds that should be used for public transportation to subsidize personal transportation. I think is a really important part of the conversation that goes back to where we kind of started around what the city could and should be doing. I think to recoup some of the money that they're investing in infrastructure to support personal transportation.
And speaking of infrastructure, obviously the future of Uptown is going to change quite a bit. Hopefully you had a chance to look at some of the posters that are around. But as hopefully all of you know, we are converting McKinney and Cole back to two-way streets as they were originally. And that is to slow down traffic. Obviously, like we said, our area is gained in density, and those two-way streets will help that neighborhood feel that we like to have here. But Patrick, you want to talk a little more about that project and what the future looks like for that?
Yeah, I'm glad that you said back to two-way streets, because whenever we talk about change, people get scared.
Yeah.
Right? But this is really the way that they were for 80 years before in the 1970s. It was actually a faster bypass for the park cities to skip the highway, right? Just to cut through Uptown to get to downtown. But now Uptown is a destination itself with many smaller destinations. And what one-way networks tend to do is cause cars. You can't actually get right to where you're going. You actually have to circle around several times, and it actually creates about 10% more traffic throughout the entire network. What a lot of two-way conversions around the country have been intended to do is actually commercial revitalization, particularly in downtowns. That's not particularly our issue here. We're doing okay in Uptown, we're doing okay in Knox. Our issue here is really twofold, because we're kind of a tale of two neighborhoods. We've got a boundary where Uptown stops as a public improvement district, but also in character. So as soon as you pass Blackburn and get to North Dallas High School, it's a very different kind of neighborhood. And up there, it's townhomes, lower density, there's families, there's schools, there's churches, but it becomes a raceway as soon as you get into Uptown. I was clocking cars going 50 miles an hour along Cole Park. And up there, the intention is to narrow down the lanes, calm the traffic, so it feels more like a neighborhood street. Whereas in Uptown, we've got much more higher density. We've got a lot of people going in different directions, not just north and south. So people have to navigate more fine-grained pattern. But because the neighborhood is sort of pinched between the Katy Trail and the highways, which both have sort of limited access across them, there's only really one way north and one way south through Uptown, fundamentally. And so like I was saying earlier, if you've got 3 travel lanes going up McKinney Avenue, you're like, well, that's great, plenty of room to get through there, but all of a sudden you've got a trolley stop here, you've got Uber and Lyft stopping all over the place here, you might have parking that stops one lane there, and so it doesn't really flow that well, and it tends to create choke points. And by making the grid function more like a grid, which has more redundancy, more route choice, cars can actually find their way around it better. And we actually found through the traffic study that's part of the case. So that's really what we're trying to do with that. But the flip side was also when we started looking at the whole public realm of Uptown, we saw there's a lot of big public spaces at the periphery, whether it's Katy Trail that's linear, whether it's Griggs Park, Clybourne Park, big things at the edge. But there wasn't really a lot of small public spaces that fit a different kind of niche where you want to sort of spend time. We also found that McKinney Avenue sort of feels like a barrier rather than a seam. Really, and so neighborhoods feel like they're apart from each other. And what we want to create is actually that center of gravity. And the way the one-ways had to come back together, the city had to condemn a lot of properties on these blocks to make the road sort of curve back together. And it really makes all these very awkward intersections. There's a Starbucks at McKinney and Allen. You go down the hill in Allen and you get to Carlisle, and there's these weird islands left over of just grass space and striped off lanes that the city knows they don't even need. So it's like, let's actually reclaim all that extra pavement, because we would make all those intersections obsolete. We would also make them much more safe for pedestrians, because they would be controlled, stopped intersections. And we can redesign, you can see some of the posters up there, we can actually redesign these areas, which are right now sort of high, fast-moving traffic, lots of pavement, lots of different crossing points. So just to cross the street, you kind of have to cross 3 or 4 different streets. To actually just make, you're crossing one street, now you're into a public space. And we feel like these can be new centers of gravity at a different kind of scale, more pedestrian scale, from the very big public spaces that are sort of at the periphery. So I think it's going to really change the feel of the neighborhood and create these new centers of gravity. And working through that whole process, changing the thoroughfare plan with the city, finding funding. This whole thing is now funded, and we're just waiting to work with the city on procurement for the engineer, and this should be happening in the next, 2-3 years?
Yeah, absolutely. Been a little painful for a while, but it's obviously for a very good cause, I believe. So before we move into Q&A, I just want to kind of open it up to all of you about trends. Anything you've seen in another city or another place that you think that could be beneficial to Dallas, or that you find interesting, something that maybe should be brought into the conversation? I'm just curious, because all of you have experience in a lot of different places.
Yeah, I want to say change. We see a lot of other cities. I don't want to name the cities, but one of the joke we have in the Department of Transportation is everyone says we're working with Dallas, but no one really is working with Dallas. They're working with the city next to Dallas, you know, because if you go, I don't know, to Georgia and you say, hey, I'm working with city of Allen, chances are someone may not know where Allen is, but if you say I'm in Dallas, you know, they will know. So we want to be a little more open to change and be able to invite these new technologies, these new changes that actually is revolutionary transportation and mobility. There's this concept. I like to think we're a bit conservative to changes, and so a lot of the companies that wants to come and pilot new things are going to these other cities, these other Dallas, to pilot because they are more open. That's why they have better signal synchronizations, better technology, a better control of their programs. So I would say definitely be a little more accepting and open.
Thank you. Will?
Deal with trends every day, trying to think what's most interesting to Dallas. I mean, I do think that this idea that car ownership is going to continue to decrease pretty dramatically over the course of the next couple of years, and certainly the next 10 to 15 as we get closer and closer to an autonomous future is something that we need to start planning for today, because if we're going to be open to new technologies, the infrastructure requirements to support those are really massive. And so the planning today needs to be thinking about those changes that are going to be here in 20 years, really, and what are the things that we should be doing to our streets and to our neighborhoods in order to prepare for that. Because and a lot of the things aren't incredibly obvious, like where are autonomous vehicles going to park, where are they going to charge, should that be in a dense urban core or outside of it? Should they be allowed on the streets unoccupied or not? How are they going to be cleaned and serviced? And all of this infrastructure is really actually, it's going to take that long, at least, if not longer, to make. And so I think a lot of the conversation that we're having is almost even a little too narrowly focused on what's happening on our streets today, and it probably needs to be more looking towards that next step.
Will tapped into something that I wanted to sort of build on, which is sort of a generational shift. And I think that less of a reliance on cars from younger generation really is sort of in a way, a backlash to how they grew up. And so a lot of millennials sort of grew up dependent upon somebody else to get them around. So it's really about a notion of freedom. And I think the return to sort of bikes and scooters and this sort of micro-mobility is what was freedom to the 12-year-old when the 1950s. It was about, hey, let's get to 16, let's get a car, and then we can go anywhere we want. Where then once cities started to spread out, kids couldn't get where they needed to go as much. They were dependent on their mom to get to soccer practice or the bus to get to school or something, and that became, you were dependent. So it really is about this notion of freedom, and I think how that's being applied around cities now is actually how far can people get and how many places can people get to without having to own a car. Because one generation thought of car as freedom because you could get out in the open road, but now it means more debt, more car payments, insurance, stuck in traffic. Is that really freedom? And so what places are starting to do now is actually completely rethink their bus network. And that's something that we're beginning right now. And it's really about that same notion of freedom. And when you rethink the bus network, have effectively less routes, but more buses on each route, that means there's more coming by each 10, 15 minutes. It also means the transfer times are less, because one bus route's not going to get you to everywhere you're going to go, or one bus route how it connects to the rail system and the trolley system. And when we can increase that kind of frequency, all of a sudden your range in 30 minutes or 40 minutes or 50 minutes or 60 minutes, and the data shows this out, that once you start increasing frequently, simplifying your network, you may now have another 1 million more jobs that people have access to. And that's what Houston found when they redid their bus network. And it was all about consolidating routes, simplifying their network. They connected 1 million more people to 1 million more jobs. And that's really what the freedom is about, because not everybody is of age, means, and ability to own and operate a car. So how do we actually make more people have more freedom and more accessibility to the rest of the city? So my dream as part of this bus network redesign is that we have a hybrid of what Houston did with maximizing their high frequency all-day network. Because what I found looking through our system is that south of I-30, 70+% of our routes had highest ridership midday, but our lowest frequency midday. So we were trying to serve peak times, the 9 to 5, but people were using it not for 9 to 5 trips, but to try to get to healthcare, grocery stores, the other things that they're trying to get to. And we actually have to better match our service with the needs of our people. And then layer in what Seattle did, which they're seeing ridership go through the roof in their rapid ride network. And rapid ride means these longer buses, higher capacity buses, running very frequently, running in dedicated lanes, running with signal priority so they can actually bypass traffic. And it's a way that we can deliver at much lower cost than delivering rail, deliver rail level of service to areas that we'll probably never be able to afford to actually build rail lines to. But to me, that is the goal over the next 5-10 years, is start laying out that kind of system. And it will be a much more interconnected city. And from our standpoint, it's not just about the city, it's about the 13 municipalities that we serve, Plano, Garland, Irving, as well as Dallas.
So there's no doubt that density is a phenomenon of the age. We're going to have more density going forward, and we need to figure out how to deal with this density in a way to add functionality. I think we need more of a holistic look at all of these services, all of these plans, all these programs, all of these conversions of streets to make sure that we provide the functionality. From my perspective, you also have to have some enjoyment. You have to want to use these services. You have to make sure that they are also helpful to the neighborhood, to the quality of life, to the walkability of the neighborhood. Make sure that they have access for everybody. Make sure that they deal with the residents that we have today. By the way, Uptown has a large population of dogs, for example. We need to make sure that we also consider all of these things. So from our small perspective, you need to look at the holistic approach to be able to address this. I'm all for progress and shiny new things, but at the same time, you have to enjoy them. Otherwise, they won't come. You build them and they won't come.
Great, so I would love to take the next minutes and open the floor to